Yeah, so first we will always have to check what Wi-Fi network we're on, and please make sure that you're using SH students or SH staff in order to get access to the server. And so you can start with SSH, your email address at ds01, or also if you know the address, the IP address of the server, you can also use that. Enter, and then you put in your password. It's basically the same password as your email. So we're functioning on a one sign-on signatures as per IT's instructions. So your password will work everywhere on the server. But if you want to have persistent connections, because this SSH connection will drop out at some point because it has a timeout elements in it. So if you want, and this is especially if you are working on unreliable internet connections, if you're working on the train, for example, and you want to access the server to run some stuff, and then the train internet is not that good, or if you're working from home and then the internet at home is not that good, then I highly recommend that you use Marsh. Marsh is basically a version of accessing the servers using basically that you can have very low internet, and it's a persistent connection. It basically means that you can basically move from one Wi-Fi to another, and you will still have connection to the server. And you can have internet dropping in, dropping out, and then your connection will still be persistent. And we've already put Marsh on the server, and so the only thing that you need to do is go to marsh.org. And then install Marsh on your personal computer as well. And then you can start to use the Marsh command to get access to the server. I think go to getting Marsh. And then if you have Homebrew on your Mac, then you can just brew install Marsh, and then it should automatically be there. You can also download the binary package to install it as like a normal app. And if you use Windows, then you can use Marsh for Chrome, which is an extension that you can use for Chromium or for any Chromium browsers, including Brave. Yeah, and Chrome here as well. So yeah, highly recommend using Marsh. So you can always have it on. You sign in again, then we're in. And the next step is basically to create a Docker container. And we always recommend you to use Docker containers for running your operations and also running your projects, mainly because if you use a Docker containers, then all your resources on the servers will be well partitioned. So it's shared resources between everyone. And so everyone has a shared equal amounts of resources available to them. And then you can run all these operations very smoothly and without any disruptions. Otherwise, if you use Conda environment, for example, or a virtual environments in Python, then usually the system would recognize that, hey, this is one user, and then all the people that are using Dockers are one user. So you have a lot more resources available to you. But if you run a very heavy and intensive operations, then the system will also detect. Sometimes it will detect that, hey, this guy is using too much resources, and so to safely make sure that all the system is running well, they will basically kick you out of the server, and then it will stop all the operations that you're running. So this is a security measures that the suppliers of the hardware have provided as part of their package. So we unfortunately cannot uninstall it because it's basically installed by the admin. So that's why we always recommend you to use the Docker container. Docker container is basically an environment very similar to Conda environment, where you can store all kinds of packages and all kinds of you can set up your working environment basically. And if you delete your Docker containers accidentally, for example, then all your data is still there. And so the data is not stored inside the Docker containers. Inside the Docker containers only contains your packages and all the pip packages that you install, and all the data is still within your working directory. And so the first thing when we go into a directory is you always need to print your working directories to know exactly where you are on the server. And so yeah, we just use pwd, the command, to know where you are. And then what I always recommend is to use mlc/list. And this will basically give you all the list of all the containers that you have available, right? So you can set up multiple containers to work on multiple different frameworks, PyTorch, TensorFlow, whatever you want to do. So you can set up as many as you want to use and all of them will be very minimal resources. So if you use MLC, is basically machine learning containers. So MLC/list, and then it will list for you like all the different things that you have on the servers. And so you can use different, for each of your projects, you can have your own containers to work on these projects, basically. But if you want to create a new containers, you can basically go to the guidelines and go here to see create workspace. So the command, as we can see here, is MLC create container name. So it could be anything, right? So usually we would always recommend putting your name on there so that in case there's any problems, we can on the admin side, we can look into the servers and see what's your containers and what's going on. And it can be TF or something. So you put in the framework so that you know what's there, or you can put your project name in there as well. And then we would need the framework version. So for example, if I want to create a TensorFlow containers version 12.2.11, I just put TensorFlow and then version in here is 2.11.0. And then another thing is to put in your working directories, right? So /w is basically the working directories, and that's what you print out right here. So you can also have a different directories, right? So you can also set up, like for example, I have a workspace as one of the folders as well, and I can also use that as the working directory. So all the data that you created and all the data that you process will be stored on this folder. And then it will take like a minute or two, and then it should be ready in like a minute or two. And then you can basically open up the containers by MLC/opened, and then the name of the container. And then you're in. And then basically this is the environment that you can work with Python, with TensorFlow mainly, and also PyTorch if you want to install PyTorch in there is possible as well. And let's see what we have in here. Okay, so that's the basics of opening up a container. And I think the next step is to open a Jupyter notebook within the container, right? So that you can start to work on a project in the containers. You can use Jupyter Notebook, or you can use Jupyter Lab. We would recommend you to use Jupyter Lab mainly because it has a lot more functions, and it has different extensions that you can add onto it, and especially you can also use Git directly with GitLab. So you can push your project into GitLab, you can clone it, and you can also commit different changes that you want and directly into GitHub as well. So yeah, it's easily, you can just pip install in Jupyter Lab, and then it should automatically install into the into this Docker for you. So I already installed it. So what I want to do is I want to open a Jupyter Lab notebook and / no browser. Okay. Apparently we haven't installed it. So sometimes it has these issues where it doesn't recognize a newly installed package. And what we can do is, so this Docker containers on the server, it has a particular PID, right? So a PID is basically the process that this Docker container runs on the server. Let me ask my personal assistant how to find PID of Docker by its name on the Linux server. I forgot the command to find the PID. Yeah, so what I want to do is basically to switch on root mode for this Docker so that I can actually run the Jupyter notebook, because the Jupyter Lab. Okay, let's use this command. No, not here. And it was free TFS. Yeah, or you can just use Docker PS. So this is the ID of your containers. You can copy it, and then you can use this command in order to work on it as a root user, TUIU root, and the PID.
I think there might be, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if this works.
I couldn't follow you 100%, but I think when you copied the ID of above, I think you might have missed one S, which was one line below, but I'm not sure if this is the reason for.
What do you mean, which command?
Like if you go back and then just a tiny bit, if you scroll up,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I was when you type in the 34A23CAC, etc.
Yeah.
Like under ports, there's one more S. I'm not sure if that's.
Oh, this S here?
Yes.
It actually belongs to the status.
Sorry.
Yeah.
My bad. Sorry.
Yes, basically. Yeah. Wait, let me check and see what's the issues. Sorry, like this always happens with live demo. Things that you don't expect. Let me check quickly on ports. Ports number. Okay, let's try this. Okay. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, so the issues is Jupyter Lab, it was installed into one of the local folders, and it's in the bin folder. And so that's why by exporting the path here, it points you to the right folders where Jupyter Lab is installed. Sorry for that little hiccup. I'll put all these different commands and all these fixed into yeah, a one pager, so you can copy this and use it later when you run it on your own as well. So no worries. Yeah, so we have already launched our Jupyter Lab notebook on the server, and what we can do next is to basically connect our local host to the Jupyter Lab here on the server. So as you can see here on the server, it's run on port 8888, right? So what we want to do is, what I usually would do is just to also connect it to port 8888 on my own machine, so that it's easier to remember. Okay, and then now if we go to that, yeah, it should already launch. Okay, all good. Yeah, and so yeah, basically you have a Jupyter Lab notebook here, and you can navigate around your different directories, and you can create a new notebook. Yeah. Yeah, the god of sensors are not doing well for me today. Okay, let's launch this here then. Of course. Yeah, sorry for the hiccups. Let me check why it's having issues here. Yeah, I don't know why the other one was having issues. Yeah, I look into this. Yeah, so basically you can create a new notebook, or you can open an old one on the server with Jupyter Lab. And the reason why we suggest using Jupyter Lab, because you can add different extensions on the server, right? So for example, you can add Git extension. So for example, here I get, this is the, let me see, I think it's the Jupyter Lab Git. Extension, which helps you to work directly with GitHub on the server. Yeah, in order to install this extension, basically you just have to use this pip install upgrade Jupyter Lab Git, and then you put it into the command lines here on the Dockers basically. And then it will automatically install, and then the next time that you run Jupyter Lab, it should have this file here. And then from this, you can clone any repository on, for example, if you create a new repository for your project. So for example, let's say that we use one of my old projects here. You can go here, you can clone it into the server. I think this might be too big. But yeah, and then you will have the projects directly here on your Jupyter Lab. And then let's say you want to update or change anything, and you after maybe you work on some Jupyter file in here, or you work on your README or something. Let's say that we change like something very simple here, like mapping poverty from space, and then we add in this space here. Then we save that, and then if you click on the extension, you can see here that the README file has been changed, right? And the next thing that you want to do is you want to click on the plus sign here, and we'll basically push this README file to the stage. And stage is basically where it's ready, but not pushed to GitHub yet. And what you want to do next is you want to put in a commit comments. Update, let's say update README, and also description in case you want to be more descriptive, and then you click on commit. And the next thing that you want to do is to put in your name and your email address for this, which should also correspond to your email address for your GitHub. And then you should click on here, which is the commit to the cloud. And then you put in your credentials for GitHub, which is my username, which is freedom.90. And then the next thing that you need is the personal access token. And in order to get your personal access token, you go into your profile here, you go to settings, go all the way down to developer settings, and then personal access token, fine-grained tokens. So for example, this is what I created yesterday to test it out to make sure that everything works well. So what you want is to generate new tokens, and you can have a new name, right? So for example, Jupyter Lab Cloud, for example, and then you can set the expiry date. You can also set custom to set it permanently as well. Or for example, second day for GPU server, just to be descriptive. And then you can, if you want the Jupyter Lab on server to be able to read and write, then you need to click on all repositories. And then you give permissions for exactly what you want it to do, right? The important thing is to give it permissions for content, for read and write. And yeah, and then you can take a look in here on what things that you want to do, right? Maybe also pool access as well. Yeah, these are not really that important. Yeah, mainly, yeah, maybe also issues. Yeah, so mainly contents, that's what you need, and pull requests, and also issues. And then you can see here what other things that you might need. For example, if you do use GitHub Actions, then you can also put there as well. And then count permissions, then you generate tokens. And then you can basically copy this, right? And you can put it in here. Okay. And then it's successfully pushed onto your repository. Let's see if it's there. Yeah, so one commit from today.
Can we ask questions in between?
Yes, of course.
I was wondering if I'm able to connect to a repository, how do I deal with the problem that maybe that I don't have my data in my repository because it's too big? How do I like combine working on the one hand with like through Jupyter Lab with a repository, but having my data somewhere else? Or
so where do you store your data? Is it on Google Drive or
yeah, for now, yes, but I was wondering, just is there like a best practice? Should I like store it on the server? How would you recommend doing this?
Yeah, so the easiest way is to store the server, right? Because if you store it on the server, then the data is right next to your notebook. And so it's much faster in terms of processing power. But if your data, it's, I don't know, like terabytes of data, like 2-3 terabytes or something, then it might be better to perhaps store it on the Google Drive that we provide with. So that's like quite unlimited storage. And so you can store a lot of data in there, and then you can basically use the Google Drive. I think there's something that I looked up before the sessions here. Yeah, so there's like a guide on how you can basically use Google directly on yeah, how to upload file Google Drive from Linux command. Yeah, and then you can use Google Drive interchangeably on the server as well. But this will be a little slow, right? So because Google Drive is like on a completely different servers, and then the notebook is on a completely different server, so it has to talk to each other through this protocol that is established here. So the processing time will be much longer than if you have the data directly on the server. So that's why we always recommend if the data it's like small size, like hundreds gigabytes or something like that, then yeah, like you can put it on the server and you can run operations on there. So it's much quicker. But if it's several terabytes, then put it on Google Drive. And then I'll also set the links here so that you can also take a look on how to use it, and then make that connections whenever you use the notebook, and then you can process that basically that connections to Google Drive. But then that will I think, take a lot longer, especially if you do trainings of deep learning, for example.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yeah, okay. I hope that's okay. Yeah, so for example, here, as you can see, the file README is updated with this. So that's basically it. And you can, so yeah, the one issue is that you basically have to put in that that tokens almost every time whenever you do the push commit, and that's a little bit annoying. And so what you can do to basically store that credentials permanently on their server, so that you can just like do it over and over again, even when you sign out and when you sign in, is you can go to, let me see. And you can go to the terminal, and what you can do is, okay, I forgot the command. Let's see, how to store credentials. So git indefinitely to reuse like on a server. Not what I want to see. Yeah, so this is, I think, a very useful tool. Right? So ChatGPT, I think it has, you can ask us like quite a lot of questions, and this is especially useful when you do coding, and then you don't want to spend hours to search on Stack Overflow. Okay, yeah, that's this one. Of course. Okay. Yeah, so the issues that we just come across is basically this notebook is not run as root. So now if we want to run it as root, basically we have to use as such, and then we can run as root, basically. So sorry, the issues with servers that, okay, the issues with these servers that it's a little bit of a hassle to set up things, and there's all these permission issues that you always have to come across. And you can always have several sessions, right? So you can have several sessions, and you can run things so that you can have different commands on here. Okay, let's see. Yeah, and you can also initialize new repositories, and then you can upload them onto your GitHub directly using very similar methods as I mentioned earlier, right? And you can also, I think, browse your different GitHub folders directly on here as well. And then you see all the different projects that you have on the servers. Yeah, so I think those are the main things that I want to mention. Let me check my notes to see. Yeah, so we talked about MOS, we talked about finding your directories, starting containers, Jupyter Lab connections, and for those of you that are working on groups, I can also set up a shared folder in which you can several of you can also join and work on a specific folder together. Right? So if you do work on a project with your teams and you want to have a shared folders to work together, let me know so I can create that for you and also grant you access permission so you can work on that folders together. And also maybe another thing that I want to maybe perhaps show is prototyping, right? So for example, if you are working on a project and at the end of the project, you want to perhaps launch a prototype and for to showcase what the project is about and also for people to play around with. I think last year we talked about prototyping data science projects with Streamlit, but recently there's a new framework that came out. It's called Gradio, and with Gradio you are able to actually create apps for machine learning models and for deep learning models much easier. And I think I can show quickly here the projects, one of the projects that I did, I think 2 months ago. See the folders. Yeah, so for example, for that project, I use PyTorch and it's the AI voice one. Yeah, so this project is basically creating deep learning models that is able to fake someone's voice, right? So you can put it maybe like a few minutes of recordings where you have someone's voice, and then the models can actually replicate that voice in a fairly realistic manner. Yeah, let's try to open up that. I don't remember exactly where that's. Okay, AI voice. Yeah, let me show quickly. Yeah, of course, there's near number. Okay, I see. Let me use a different one. And so it's launched and it's in port 7860. Let's give it permissions. Okay, I figure out what's wrong with this. please work. Yeah, so the issue is that I need to run this as root, right? So as I mentioned earlier, you have to have two running instances on the server at the same time. So first you have to have the Docker running. So I open my Docker first, and then I find out the name of the server, the container ID, the PID of that container, which is here. And then I basically use this command to turn this into a root access. And then I basically can run that, which I have to first get this permissions. And so this is basically, this is launching this app on this server, and then it launches on port 7861, right? And then in order to open it on my local machines, I need to give this connections to the local machines also on the same port. And so let's hope that it works this time. Yeah, okay, so this is the app basically. And for example, we have two models here. One is you can do directly. Just like choose some of the recorded voice that we found online here. So these are basically the voices that I download on YouTube, and they're basically ebook speakers basically. So all the ebooks that we recorded, I download some of them, and then basically I put them as samples to generate this model. We can also combine them, like we combine different people. For example, we could combine maybe Grace and Tim Reynolds, and then we can choose generation as fast. So fast and standard is usually what I would choose, so that we can have quickly but also quite good generations. And then high quality is usually quite slow. And while the model is still running, I can also show you the code and how it looks like. So Gradio is super simple, actually. So you usually would create your function as usual. So for example, here, this function basically takes the model and it generates the file that is using the model to using the model and also using the sample files to generate the models, right? And so we have functions to create the models. We have a return file. Same thing with the combined voice. We have the text that we want the model to talk about, the voice, and also the generated file. And then what you would do is you basically put that into an interface where you have Gradio here .interface, and then this is here is one function, right? One function. This function is basically what you have created before here. It's a create audio functions and combine voice functions, and then you basically create like all the elements on here. So all the elements on here are basically these things, and basically like this is the only change that you need to do into your code in order to launch this app by first having the functions that's going to create the output for you. And then the input is where you have all these things, right? So the input is the text, the input is the presets. What do you want to make it fast or make it slow? And then the input is the kind of voice that you want to have, right? And then the output is the audio that is generated by the model. And so let's hear what is.
One fox jumped over the lazy dogs.
I don't know if you can hear what is generated here, but that's basically what it sounds like. You can also have just one person talking as well. And so that's why I highly recommend you to go to Gradio. The apps, the documentations for Gradio is super simple, and it's as you can see here, it's an app can be created as simple as you can. Yeah, this is just like how it works. You just Gradio interface, the functions that you want to create, what is the input, what is the output, and then you launch it. And then you can also put this into your Jupyter Notebook, right? So you can also put this into a Jupyter Notebook, and then you launch it within the Jupyter Notebook, and then it will also create a separate app for you to play around with. And so if, for example, if you do create a deep learning models that take inputs and then create an output, this is something that you can use to build basically an interface for people to interact with your models, to have fun with it.
The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dogs.
I don't know if you can hear the audio that is in this thing here, but yeah, I don't know if this is Jennifer Lawrence or someone else. But yeah, and then you can also have different tabs for your file. Right? So if you have different tabs, then each of these basically represents that tab, and then you can combine them together into the full.
The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dogs.
The same one. Emma. Yeah, and then inside the model, what it does is it's basically just processing this input behind the scenes. And then we have
a quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dogs.
Yeah, and so it sounds quite realistic, but still, like this is not something that you can use to fake people's voice, right? So this is only good if you want to do, for example, an ebook reading or something. So this is very good for reading voice, but not good for like realistic voice that you can actually interact with people. But I think it's fun to play around with. I think I will try to refine this a little bit, so you can also train your own voice as well. So if you want to, I don't know, have a podcast and you don't want to spend an hour to talk, you can just write it out and then you can just put it on here, and then you can actually launch it on the server and you can play around with it. And so that's yeah. So highly recommend checking out Gradio if you do want to create an interface for your project. So you can also have authentications, right? So people have to sign in and into your app in case you don't want to open it to the public, but you still want people to check it out. You can also do that. There's lots of fun thing here, like so you can build all kinds of components. You can have text sliders, and also you can yeah, like if your app if you want to also build just like a dashboard, you can also do so. So yeah, very fun here. You can also try it out different examples, and they have all kinds of examples here where you can have fun with for inspirations as well. So this is what I would highly recommend you to do if you have time after you finish your project and you want to have something on your CVs that is fun for your future employers to play around with. And let me know in case you need help to build your app as well. So I've played around with this, I think, for quite a while, and I'm familiar with most of the commands that they have. So in case you need any help to create your apps, you can also let me know, and I can try to help you to dig through the documentation as well. But the documentation of this is already very good, right? And you can also ask ChatGPT to help you as well. In case you can also ask us to, hey, like build me a Gradio app that takes in input, in images input, and then output like classification or something. And we'll actually give you some fairly good code, but you still have to do some fine tuning to make sure the code is actually working to what you would need to do. So I think that's most of the stuff that I want to say about the server. So there will be hiccups, I think, when you use it, but let me know in case while you're using it there's issues. And one I think one thing that I want to say is in case you have any of these containers that is running, right, and then you can want to delete it, you can delete it by using the command, I think, remove MLC. Yeah, MLC stop basically. And then in case if you have one of these running for too long and then you think that it's not really doing anything. I think Dina has a questions.
Yeah, since I'm one of the groups that like writes a shared math thesis, you said you can set up like shared containers. I was wondering, would that like make sense to have the data, for example, in there shared? Because otherwise, if we use a shared GitHub repository, we could also use that in our own containers, or what would be like the best setup for working and like make it all in a shared one and everything together?
Yeah, so for a group project, you cannot share containers, right? So container is it's attached to your personal email. But what you can share is you can share the same working folders. So you can have the same shared workspace on the server, and then you can store all the data there. So you can store all your data on the servers, and then you can work together on that same folders. And so the only difference is that you and, for example, Johannes will have 2 separate containers, but you can work on the same file at the same time. There's no issues, basically. I think that's and then you can push, and you can push all the different commits and changes to a GitHub, maybe on your own, on Johannes' GitHub, for example, as long as you create those personal access tokens that I mentioned earlier. So, for example, if you decide to push on Johannes' GitHub, then Johannes can create 2 personal access tokens, right? One for him to use for pushing commits from the server, and then one for you to push commits to the folders that you want to share as well. So I hope.
Okay, so there it makes sense to okay, so one sets up the repository on his or her GitHub, and then we have like access tokens like to the GitHub of the other one. And I had one more question. Now it's like out of my head. I can't remember. Maybe if someone else has a question, and I try to remember what I wanted to ask. Sorry.
Johannes, I think you have questions also.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering if it's possible to set up a container based on a Docker file, so I don't need to, or whether I would do that later, or how that kind of works.
Yeah, you can, but is there anything specific that you want from the containers that you want to set up?
I mean,
so the Docker command works, right? So you can use the Docker command directly to set up the containers, whatever it is that you want to use. Still, like, we would recommend using MLC. So MLC is also Docker. So just basically, it's just another layers to make it easier because like all the commands are stored already inside the server. And also with the MLC, which is the machine learning containers, it's basically another layer on top of the Docker's framework, so that it can partition the resources well. So I would highly recommend to use the MLC first before you try it out on different containers. But I completely understand, because because you might have a Docker container that you've already set up that has all the different frameworks and all the different things that you already need. So you might want to launch it. But yeah, so you can launch it basically by using that Docker command separately.
Yeah, I was thinking about it because that would also make it easier to have 2 people working on the same thing if you just have the same Docker init file. But okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can use the Docker PS command to know like what is the PID of your containers, right? And then you can use that to also join together like in one container as well. So that shouldn't be an issue. Yeah, Florian.
Hi, yeah, thanks for the demo. That was really helpful. Question from the beginning, I guess. Is it possible to access the server remotely, or do we have to be physically at Hertie? And if it's possible, how can we access it?
Yeah, okay, so this is a tough question, because up until last year, we were able to provide remote access to everyone, but IT has recently changed their policy, and so now it's not possible to provide students with remote access anymore, mainly because of security issues, because your laptop is not Hertie provided laptops, and so it does not have the same security measures that are installed by IT team, and so they are not able to ensure that like your laptop will not be a vector of attack for potential hackers, for example. So now it's only possible to access the servers for students if you are on campus. And this is quite unfortunate, because I also agree with you that you might be going into different countries and you want to keep working on the servers. But unfortunately, this is a no starter for IT, actually, because we've tried to give students access to remotely to everyone, but last year was possible, but this year is a no-no, because IT is really ramping up their securities, because we we do have a lot of security holes within the school's network. So this is one of those things that they want to patch by not providing remote access to students, unfortunately.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Silke?
Hi everyone. I'm not in a master's, but I'm working at Hertie, and who invited me to quickly join you because I'm trying to get more used to working with Dockers on the server as well. And the question that I'm having is, so far when I've wanted to run longer scripts, I've normally started them with, I've using virtual environments so far, and I've just started them with a cron job overnight. And I'm wondering how I can do that with the Docker, because as far as I understand, when I'm logging out of the server, I'm probably also closing the Docker. And I'm wondering how I can keep scripts running overnight.
Not necessarily. Actually, so when you come into the Docker containers, and also you can leave process running inside the container, right? When you exit. For example, in Jupyter, for example, in Jupyter Lab, you can run, or Jupyter Notebook, you can run that. I think no browser, and then you can use this command basically. So like n in disown, it basically means that the Jupyter Notebook is going to be running detached from all the other process on the that is run by your ID. And so even when you sign out of the containers and when you exit exit the server, your process will still be running. So that's just one example. So it's for example, I think we can like exit all of these different things, and then like all the different containers that are running here will still be available. So only when I use MLC stop that it actually stops. Yeah, so you can use cron jobs, I think, to run these different stuff on inside the Docker containers. I hope that sounds right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and you can try it out, and if you have come across any issues, you can also let me know, and I will try to also debug that as well. I've not run any cron jobs inside the container itself, but it should be working as a normal terminal, so it should also be running that as well. But I think you need to install that, because inside the container is basically like a version territory. There's almost nothing there except for the Python package and also your TensorFlow or PyTorch frameworks that is in there. Yeah, and
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. And then you can also have the starter notebook, right? So under Hertie guide, we have our GPU notebook that is a starter notebook, and then you can upload it on here. So you can also start with that, especially if you do work on NLP and if you do work on Hugging Face, then that starter notebook has solutions to some of the common issues that you might come across when you start with Hugging Face on the server. I think we've solved most of the issues that is there. So for example, and you can also change the different CUDAs and the different GPUs that you use, right? So on the server, we have 4 GPUs, A100, which is the latest model, and NVIDIA, they haven't come out with a bigger one. If, for example, if you're working, if one of the servers is not functioning well, you can also switch to a different server or to a different GPU as well, so that you can run faster operations, basically. So that's it. And yeah, I'll send, I think tomorrow or on Friday, a one-pager basically of all the different commands that I used today, so that you can also use it to test and also to run stuff on the server as well. And then if you come across issues, let me know. I'll try my best to support. And as always, I actually really recommend using ChatGPT to solve some of the problems that you have, because it's super helpful, this thing. If you give it the right questions, it will give you the right answer. So that's that's a really useful tool for you if you do research and you do coding intensively. So thank you everyone for joining today's sessions. Hopefully you were able to learn something, and you don't feel so so scared of the server. At the beginning, I was also very fearful when I go on this, but then I think after a while, you play around with it and you realize that it's just basically like a computer on the cloud, right? And you can do quite a lot of fun thing with it. And in case that if during the process of writing your thesis, if you're running into too much problem on the server, we can also set up a cloud computer for you also on Paperspace, which is basically like a cloud providers for GPU power as well, in case that the GPU at 30 is not working out for you. And so with this, it's very similar, but it also has some quirks of its own as well. So it's basically you have to learn a little bit more on top, but it's one option in case the GPU server at 30 is not working out. Julian, you have a questions?
Yeah, thanks for the intro. I have a question indeed. So I was wondering, do you know how to use this directly from VS Code? I remember that Florian, our tutor in deep learning, showed us some way using a plugin that makes it a little easier. And yeah, I was just wondering whether you have some experience with that, because I couldn't get this to work in the lab. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Silka also has some experience of working here, but I think she just signed out. I will also update, I think, a sections on the guide on how to use VS Code on with the server as well, in case you want to use it. I'm not sure what laptop you're using, so I don't know if you're using an M1 chip or an Intel chip for MacBook, Julian.
No, I have a Windows computer.
Windows, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
so that might also work. I haven't used it for Windows, but maybe it's the same thing. But yeah, I'll look into Windows and then
Yeah.
I'll put basically like another section on here on how to connect it to VS Code.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, thanks everyone. Hope everyone's doing well, and so sorry for all the hiccups. It's always a problem with live demo. That's why I actually much prefer to just record everything like quickly or on the video, like 10-15 minutes, and then and then post it on YouTube. But then also you might also see like how to debug as well in case you have come into issues like this when you're running things as well. So hope everyone's doing well. Take care, and all the best to your research. Let me know if you have any problems. And Dina and Johannes, I will create a folder for you, and I'll ask some questions. I think I need to know your IDs on the server. So that's basically just if you sign into the server and you click just W, then usually like you would have like the name, the username that you have here, who am I, basically, and then you would have the name here. And if you send me your this ID that you have on your server, then I can add you basically to that workspace. Yeah, Dina?
No, I just clicked wrong. I just wanted to like thumbs up that and send it to
Awesome.
you.
Okay, thanks guys. Take care. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you.
Yes, bye-bye.
Bye.